Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Rough Rider, where every week I talk writing, self-publishing, and living in a barely literate society. So for self-publishing authors, a social media presence is essential because you have to market yourself. So everyone's heard of Facebook and Twitter, but there are alt tech sites that you can try. So what's alt tech and why is that a good option for indie authors? Alt tech is the newer, smaller social media sites. They're generally committed to freedom of expression and they don't punish you for wrongthink. If you're an indie author, you want to try to find your target audience online. And if you're the kind of author who writes about controversial subjects, then the big name social media sites might not be a friendly place for you. But even if you're a more conventional type of author who doesn't write about something that might upset others, alt tech still is a good option for you. So why should you move to alt tech as an indie author? The first reason to move to alt tech is because you have more freedom. These sites were founded on the idea of freedom of expression. That's what's drawing a lot of users there. People have had some pretty bad experiences on the big sites like Twitter and Facebook. You know, on Twitter and Facebook, they'll shadow ban you if you're saying things that they don't like. You can also very easily get canceled on Twitter because the Twitter mobs will come for you if you say something that goes against the societal grain. But on alt tech, a lot of those users went there because they are against cancel culture. They're against shutting people down for what they have to say. So if you write controversial things, then alt tech is definitely a good option for you. The algorithm won't punish you for saying things that the powers that be say you shouldn't be saying. You won't have this mob of like semi-anonymous people online coming after you with torches and pitchforks. Ultimately, you'll have a lot more freedom to say what you want to say, push the kind of content that you create, and not have to worry about being punished for it by the algorithms. You know, when you run the risk of being shadow banned on Twitter or Facebook, then that means that you risk not having your book seen by other people. They might not outright ban you, but you won't have as many people seeing the post that you put about your book. They're not going to see any of that, and how do you expect them to even find out about your book if Twitter or Facebook just makes you invisible? That's not going to happen to you on alt tech. So the second reason to move to alt tech as an indie author is that there's a smaller audience but higher engagement. Alt tech has a much smaller user base than the big name platforms. So you're not going to reach as many people, but you will have much more visibility. You won't have the blue checkmark people to compete with, like the celebrities and the politicians whose content gets preferential treatment by the site's algorithm. You know, if you go on YouTube or something like that and search for some sort of current event, you're not going to see the smaller people who are talking about this issue. It's going to be like CNN, it's going to be MSNBC, it's going to be these big corporations whose content you see. Same thing will happen on Twitter. They care a lot more about what a celebrity or a politician has to say about an issue than they do about you. They care way more about J.K. Rowling than they care about you. And while there are some big name people on alt tech, you're not going to be eclipsed by them. And on the big sites, there's just so many users that it's easy to get drowned out. It's like screaming in the middle of a concert or something. There's just so many voices that no one's gonna hear you. And when I say that alt tech has less users, I don't mean that it has like no users. It's not like some really, really small amount. It's just comparatively smaller. And on those sites, when you put content out, you're much more likely to be seen because you have far less people to compete with than you would on Twitter or Facebook. And when you're more likely to be seen, you're more likely to be engaged with. So I've found much higher engagement on sites like Getter than I have on Twitter. You shouldn't judge someone purely on a follower count. That really means nothing. What matters is how much engagement you get. And what I've seen other people do is they get really, really caught up on their follower count. It's all they care about. They just keep thinking, I need to reach 1,000 followers. I need to reach 2,000 followers on Twitter. If I don't, then I'm not legit. But it doesn't matter if you have all these followers if one, they don't even see the stuff that you're posting, and two, they don't interact with it. It's way better to have 50 followers on a site that regularly interact with you and pay attention to what you're saying and posting than it is to have 5,000 followers on Twitter who never see what you put up and who never say a thing to you. If they're not going to interact with you on there, they're definitely not going to spend money to buy your book. So on alt tech, smaller audience, higher engagement, I think that that's a net positive. Now, the third reason to move to alt tech as an indie author is there's a minimal learning curve. Some of the terms might differ, like on Gab, you don't tweet like on Twitter. But the method of use is almost the same. If you go on those sites, even the interface is familiar. It won't take long for you to figure out. Getter, Gab, and Minds would be familiar to any Facebook or Twitter user. And in the past, the functionality of these sites was sort of lacking. They were real clunky at first, enough that it made me want to turn away from them. And I had even posted in my blog that while I like the idea of a lot of these sites, I just thought that they were like the user experience was so rough that it wasn't really worth pursuing unless you really need to. I've since changed my mind because they've really improved a lot. Like Getter is constantly updating their mobile app to improve their user experience, and it's really functional now. Most of them do have mobile apps now. There was a point where that wasn't true. Gab, for whatever reason, still doesn't have one, but Minds, Getter, even Donald Trump's one, Truth Social, has one. Somehow Apple let that get through. I'm not really sure how that happened because they seem like the kind of people that would hate him. So what I'm saying is if you move to alt tech, you're not gonna have to figure out how to use the site or how best to use it because it's basically the exact same structure and setup as the ones that you're already using. What distinguishes them is their lack of a punitive algorithm against people, but otherwise the rest of it is very similar. And the fourth reason to move to alt tech as an indie author is that you have broader options on alt tech. There's only a handful of these mega corporate social media companies. You've got Facebook for long preachy posts. You've got Twitter for conversation and trolling. You have Instagram for photos and YouTube for video, and TikTok. I don't have a TikTok. I don't want China spying on me. But alt tech has a lot of options and new ones are popping up all the time. It seems like every year there's a new one. So Facebook and Twitter's smaller competitors are Gab, Getter, Minds, and Truth Social. Again, that's Donald Trump's one. I don't know how you feel about that. And then YouTube's competitors are BitChute and Rumble. If you don't like one, you can try another one. Or if one doesn't have the right audience for your indie book, another one will. You can make multiple accounts and try to find potential readers across all these platforms. Like I personally have one on pretty much every one of these sites. And while I'm not particularly active on some of them because it's just way too much stuff to pay attention to, I do post things as sort of a news feed. So you should find what site best suits your brand as an author, best suits your indie book and your marketing strategy. So what I'm saying is that indie authors should really consider branching out into alt tech. You should diversify your social media presence. On alt tech, you've got more social networks to choose from. It's also easier to find a potential audience for your book if you're having trouble now because it's not going to be an echo chamber like Twitter would be. These are people with diverse opinions and they're open-minded. They don't just expect to hear different ideas, they welcome the chance to engage with that. Whether or not they agree with you is something else, but they are not going to shut you down for saying something different. The platforms themselves are not going to penalize you for not falling in line. And even though there's a smaller user base, you're probably going to get higher engagement because of how much more visible you are without an algorithm punishing you for being small, for just starting out in self-publishing. So as an indie author, maybe it's time to try something new. Branch out onto one of these social media sites. If you happen to like it, maybe expand a little more and try another one. So if any of you have used alt tech before and found that you had an easier time pushing your book on those sites than you did on the big name social media sites like Twitter or Facebook, please put in the comments what site you used. I would be really interested to see which one best suited you. So I do have a blog post about this. You can check that out. There's a link in the description. And if you found this helpful or interesting, please like and subscribe. Follow me on social media and alt tech. And as always, thank you for watching. God bless.